Awaken the Conscience, broadcast from New Delhi, February 18, 1948. I am taking this opportunity of adding a few words to the powerful appeals which have already been made on behalf of thousands of distressed women. During the recent disturbances which overspread both West and East Pakistan and the frontier and enmeshed a part of the beautiful Kashmir Valley and Jammu province, nothing has degraded us more than the foul crimes and barbarities which have been inflicted on innocent women and children who have been forcibly torn from their kith and kin and subjected to most inhuman indignities and violence. Even the law of jungle does not countenance such insensate wrongs. These are completely alien to traditions of any society and civilization, much less ours. There should be no place, therefore, in this world for wrongdoers of this type, and it behoves us all to see that such transgressions of civilized conduct are put down with a strong and firm hand. When I think of sorrowful plight and miserable suffering of these mothers and sisters, my heart fills with distress and grief. Women of education and breeding, many of whom had been nourished in the lap of luxury, all had led a peaceful and sheltered existence with those with whom they had ties of blood and affection. Many were valuable treasures of poor men's houses, which are now left desolate and ruined. All these have been uprooted from their natural surroundings and placed by the cruel hands of frenzied criminal into the condition of existence with shame and humanity and all the virtues and the qualities which go to make God's own creature, man. To rescue them from these living conditions and to restore them to their original environment is, therefore, an essential mission if men's reputation is to be rehabilitated as of human beings. Failure in this mission would mean that we are not fit to face the bar of human history and must go down to the future ages as those who degraded humanity to the depths lower than those of beasts. Those who have braved adversity and challenges, obstructions and obstacles in the noble undertaking have deserved well of the nation and humanity whose cause they have tried to uphold. The results that they have achieved may appear slight when compared to the dimensions of the problem, but if we consider how much concentrated effort, public zeal, patience and grit have been expended on the achievement of these results, we would be able to appreciate not only what has been done, but also what requires to be done to salvage these treasures from the wrecks of human civilization. It is obvious that an enterprise of such gigantic proportions cannot be successfully accomplished if we do not have both popular and official support. Such support must therefore be given by the government and the people in both India and Pakistan. To withhold it would be contrary not only to the solemn undertakings entered into by both the governments, but also to all laws of social existence and codes of honor. We have also to awaken the conscience of those who have perpetrated these wrongs or who have now acquired possessions of these women as though they were goods and chattels for sale, cattle for sale, or articles of price and booty. I would appeal to them to realize their error and to reflect, and stakes are involved in their persistence in the wrong course in which they have been adopted. Neither the sacred name of religion, which might have been invoked by them in perpetuating these wrongs, nor the desire for vengeance, retaliation, or plunder, which might have actuated them, can ever be pleaded in extenuation of the enormity of their misdeeds. Only repentance and restitution for the wrong committed can bring them back into the fold of normal human beings. This is therefore their opportunity for reclamation. Let them listen to the voice of their own conscience, to the injunctions of their own religion, to the rules of their own society, to the principles of their own existence, and to the codes of honor and chivalry. Let them reflect on how they themselves would have felt if their own womenfolk had to share the fate which, though their instrumentality, had befallen these innocent victims of human folly and lust. I have no doubt if they bestow a moment's thought on these considerations, they will themselves realize the errors of their ways and offer to facilitate the tasks of all those who are engaged in the mission of rescue and succor. I should also like to add a word of those unfortunate and grief-stricken relations who have lost their mothers, wives, sisters. I can well imagine what torments affect their mind and agony afflicts their hearts. I also know that many are facing and are prepared to face perils of all kinds to get back their dear ones. I have not come across any who is not anxious to claim them back into his home. I would advise them not to lose heart, but to persist in their efforts to trace them. After all, where so many thousands are involved, it is impossible for official agencies alone to discover or follow the track. Individual or collective non-official effort, backed by the official support, would probably achieve much more than mere official action. I hope, therefore, that neither disappointments nor temporary setbacks will damp their ardor, and that they will pursue their task with doggedness and determination. To the grief-stricken women themselves, I should like to send a message of sympathy and comfort. Their misery and plight have stirred our hearts. They are constantly in our thoughts. Whenever we can get at them, we will do so. They need to be in no doubt either the genuineness of the anxiety of their relations to claim them back, or the zeal and intensity of the efforts to rescue them. I realize what cups of bitterness and misery they must be drinking every minute or hour of their life. But patience and faith have moved mountains and melted the coldest hearts. Let them therefore persist in both, and I am sure they will invoke God's blessings for the success of their rescuers and awaken the conscience of the wrongdoers.